Part 5 of The Whistling Monsters by B. Wallis. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Ben Tucker. Part 5. They had gone but a few steps when the whistling broke out anew, with the clamor far exceeding its former volume. Every crack, fissure, and niche appeared to add its vociferous quota to the harshly vibrant chorus. And each note was now louder, shriller, and more vehement, as if expelled by the stress of maddened craving and diabolic rage at the retreat of the two men. It needed no fine sensitiveness to grasp that these invisible things were utterly inimical and malignant. "By God!" exclaimed Deegan, startled. "These things are watching us. They mean to rush us." And in his tone lay no trace of its former contempt. "Look that way," assented Vance. "Hello?" he cried, and the two men suddenly halted as first one, then quickly following it, a second dark mass shot from the opposite cliff out of the broken face above the alien ledge. Broad blotches of shadow flung across the speckless, fading blue roof of sky as they came with the planing swoop of a waterfowl clear over the pool and alighted with soft thuds on the beach at the water's edge. Alighted on a fringe of drooping tentacles which for a foot from the outspread membrane were so rigidly tensed that they acted as a cushion for the landing. Before the staring men could move a hand, the strange things were on the move and coming straight for them with a rapid, gliding motion. Their tentacles in swift, ever-changing movement, darting ahead in apparent confusion, while other writhing lengths in the rear with the lightning change of rigidity held the bulk of the things above the ground. Each movement was so rapidly executed that no pause or hesitation could be discerned, and the result was an odious, undulating progress. Abruptly a sense of impending awful peril came upon the watching men, and snatching at the sole weapons remaining to them, they shot a hail of jagged rubble, crashing into the repulsive brutes. At such short range, no more than half a dozen paces, every shot struck with terrific force, and in an instant the loathsome things were halted and beaten to the ground, where with wildly lashing tentacles they savagely strove to combat the hail of biting missiles, which were tearing and gashing deep pits and long ragged furrows. Wounds exuding ghastly entrails and revolting yellow-tinted slime, and abominable, squirming tangles and hideous gushings. Eviscerated, almost cut to ribbons, their tenacity of life was amazing. The great mutilated membranes throbbing and heaving incessantly while even the severed tentacles writhed and lashed out viciously. Yet it had been a simple matter to overcome these extraordinary brutes. "Settle their hash quick enough, anyway," cried Deegan exultantly. "But what are they?" he added, viewing the horrible welter with a puzzled scowl. "I never even dreamt such things existed," said Vance, and the two men stepped forward a pace from their line of march alongside the face of the bluff to view the remains more closely. In that second it happened. Neither actually saw, though likely each sensed, the noiseless dropping of the deadly thing. Something clammy and soft yet weighty fell full upon Vance, covering his head and shoulders with a slimy, clinging darkness. No mere inert blotting out of vision, but a living, strangling horror constricting upon his throat, face, and chest with an unrelenting pressure that every moment grew more deadly and agonizing. Around his arms and chest gripped seeming steel cables beyond his desperate strength to burst, holding him helpless while he suffocated in the black unknown. For the first second or so he heard a faint shouting, as if coming from an immense distance. Then it ceased as the buzzing in his head grew to a roaring that engulfed every other sound. Only he knew that something caught him up and leapt far in one swift motion. Then he was prone on the rubble and jarred by a rain of racking blows. But ever that frightful embrace of death was closing in tighter and tighter upon him, invading ears, eyes, mouth, nostrils. His head was bursting with the clamor of blood-engorged veins, and stabs of awful pain swept flames of crimson through black nothingness. Then, suddenly, the terrible pressure ceased, and the horrible mask was torn away. Blurred daylight drenched his eyes, and his heaving lungs were rapturously gulping honest air. though through a viscous, filthy-tasting slime that lay around his lips and in his eyes. His face was being rubbed roughly, and in a moment he saw again the glorious sky and rocks, and the rugged, anxious face of Deegan peering closely to his and calling over and over, "Don't move, Vance! Don't move!" Though still dazed, he recognized that he lay stretched close alongside the grim black bluff where a concave face almost roofed them. A pace or so away throbbed and writhed a fearful mangled thing of squirming tentacles and a great flat mass with revolting, dragging entrails, crawling from a gaping, ragged wound that had slit the thing from rim to center. At the sight, a violent nausea came upon him. "That's it. Get rid of the poison. I had to cut the damn thing in two before it would loosen up," said Deegan with apologetic approval. "It leaped on me?" queried Vance with a shiver as the sickness passed and his strength returned. "Sure, and if another had jumped me, we'd both be dead meat by now. Though they ain't too tough to carve," asserted his partner grimly. "But this ain't only the start. There's hell a-comin'. Half a dozen flopped into the pool while I was busy. They ain't doing nothing yet, just watching. Going to rush us for sure," he growled angrily, nodding toward the water. "Half a dozen!" exclaimed Vance hoarsely, as he leaned forward, and at the sight of the strange floating masses, he involuntarily shrank back against the wall. There was no gainsaying his partner's estimate, for a space many yards in diameter was covered with the repulsive yellow membranes, each surmounted by the globular head-like excrescence, their great flat eyes turned intently upon the men. Silent and motionless, they stared as if but awaiting some decisive second, though as Vance moved a slight stir pulsed through the entire mass. "Yes, and by their music I reckon there's 600 more to come. They're killers. A couple could strangle a buffalo," he added, eyeing the floating things appraisingly. "I tell you, these ain't no garden bugs, and we got to get. Hello, here's another bunch of the joy-birds," he cried in grim irony as fully a dozen of the brutes shot from the opposite cliff and in a planing dive dropped beside their fellows, where after the momentary commotion of their arrival they rested quietly. "I don't figure what they're aiming at," said Deegan in a low voice, "but there's no mistaking they've got us in a tight corner. If we quit this for the open, they'll jump us from above. Yet if they come for us, we can't hold them off. Not a bunch like that. Say, Vance, take a squint up the way. Maybe there's a chance of pulling out that way. I'll watch. By God, quick! They're on the move!" he cried excitedly, with a sudden tense note. End of Part 5.